Welcome to the One Hustle Show, where we're here to inspire,
motivate,
and educate you about other people's hustle in hopes that you can find
your why.
Welcome to the One Hustle Show, where we are talking about your one hustle, and today we have Matt. We are very excited to have Matt on. He is one of our key players in our business. He does our taxes and other things for our business, so we're going to be talking about his hustle, and have my co-host, New Home Yogi, my mom here, and we're going to have some fun today. So
I met Matt 15 years ago because my parents never did their taxes correctly.
But we're not that old.
Because I was scared to file taxes. I didn't want to not do it right, and I had a couple years where I hadn't filed because I was paralyzed, So
was that when you were still working for the builder?
I think it was after I quit working for myself and I had W-2, so I had 1 year that was 1099 and 1 year that was he had to catch me up 2 or 3 years. I was just paralyzed.
Believe it or not, that's more common than you'd think. There's a lot of times that I'm catching up 2 to 3 years for people because there's such a block on people's brains of wanting to do taxes.
2 to 3 years. You're
Yeah.
catching up people's taxes all the time.
All the time.
So
yes.
for all of you out there that haven't done your taxes in 3 years,
You're not alone.
You're not
It
alone.
happens to everybody.
So tell us
but get on it.
Right? So tell us a little bit about where you started. Where'd you come from? I don't even know that. I just know you're the secret sauce.
Yeah, we tell everybody you're the secret sauce, but go meet Matt. So let's learn who Matt is.
So I grew up in small town southern Utah, believe it or not. Ended up out that way because my dad was a mining engineer and just kept going farther and farther out from Missouri. So that's where it all started. And so I probably moved there when I was in second grade. Before that, it was just basically coming from Missouri to Utah. Through different jobs he had. He worked for Exxon, and then he ended up working for Energy Fuel, which was a mining company. So then I went to school in Cedar City, which is a university. It was a college prior to that. They have a really good business program. Believe it or not, I actually started in engineering prior to accounting. And I didn't like numbers or math, so I decided to do accounting.
Makes sense.
So, my dad was an engineer too, so I liked all the field work, but there was just so much behind the scenes of sitting down and calculating stuff. It just would get so boring. I was just okay, I can't do this. So I actually switched about 2 years in. So I ended up getting my master's degree. What started it probably on the tax side of things was going through all the accounting classes and tax classes, and this is all the way through getting a master's degree. Believe it or not, nobody ever teaches you a tax return. You're just kind of on your own. Nobody's ever taught you that. And so I looked in the local paper, and H&R Block was doing a class on tax preparation, and so I took the class, or signed up for it. And I'm trying to think what month it was. It was probably October, November. And when I signed up, I believe there was myself and 5 other people, plus the owner of the H&R Block, they're independently owned, was who taught the class. And by the second class, I was the only person. Everybody else dropped out. It was
Really?
that exciting, yeah.
I'm sure.
So the guy's hey, I can refund your money, or you can do this. We go at your own speed and do it. And I was well, I'm here anyway. Let's just do it. So we ended up finishing in half the time. Took the test, got a 98. And he asked me if I wanted to come work for him for that tax season. And I was sure, I'll try it. So the crazy thing is they sit you in front of a computer at H&R Block, and they don't really tell you anything outside of taking that class. And all the class really taught you was how to fill out forms and terminology and things like that. But I remember thinking, I'm sitting across from somebody that probably knows more than I do about taxes, and here I am doing their taxes. So
Holy
that was
shit.
actually kind of funny. But the program they used was really sophisticated, and it was hard to make a mistake. Like, it would guide you in the right direction of getting to the right answer. But as you guys know now, there's a lot of things I ask you guys knowing where I'm going to get the answer that I just didn't know at that time.
So you actually have to pass the test to like do this?
To work for that, to get that certification that it was for H&R Block. As far as actual to do it, to be a tax preparer, you don't have to do anything. You can hang a shingle, anybody can do it. There's no regulation. They tried a few years ago to do a what's called a P10 program to get everybody a number, and then they would have done education classes and things like that, but it never went through. So
pretty much that's why everybody's taxes are fucked up.
Can be. There are a lot of different. There's a lot of different stories you hear where, and I've even seen this on some of the major news channels, where they'll give a tax problem to 100 different accountants, CPAs, and get 100 different answers because of that. All the gray areas in the tax law, different levels of education, things like that. So to actually be a CPA, you have to take a test, get certified in hours, and get your license. So that part is different than being a tax preparer. When I got in Vegas in 1997, I worked for the largest accounting firm in town at that time, and what I didn't realize, there's a lot of CPAs, accountants, that just don't know how to do taxes as well. They're auditors and other things, and so I would set up in the back cubicles and do all the other accountants' tax returns.
Holy shit.
Oh my gosh, for real?
Yes, yeah. So I guess I was always meant to do taxes, I guess.
How did you just got good at it by going through the process? And
yeah, mostly, starting at H&R Block, and then you just do, return after return each year, and you do there's different classes and different things you can read before tax season each year, and just doing all that, you just pick up on things here and there. So, and I've probably done, some of the most complicated tax returns there are to do in Las Vegas, if not the most complicated. So,
yeah, and that's
some of the clients I've had. So, there's rarely anything I haven't seen.
Why do you think that people just are so hung up on not filing their taxes?
I think there's a block and almost a procrastination on people, just something they know they have to do, just anything else, cleaning your room, things you have to do that you don't want to do, or that you don't understand. And it's, if you don't know exactly what to pull together, what the final answer really needs to be, or I hear all the time people say, I put it in TurboTax, but I have no clue if it's right. I've got 3 different answers, whatever. So they just don't know if they're missing something, and I think that just scares a lot of people. So, they just put it off, and don't want to think about it. And, we all know the time flies, and all of a sudden it's been 2 years, you haven't done your tax return. So
I had refunds coming back to me when he filed my taxes originally
and
that I was sitting on.
And most people do.
So what advice would you give to the average person that may be sitting on refunds or waiting to do their taxes? I mean, you've met some of our clients, and they make cash money on the side, and then they want to legitimize what they're doing, and so they start operating as a business and structuring it correctly. What do you recommend to those people? Because I know some of the people we've brought to you, they've actually got money back, they've actually been able to claim their income and put themselves in a better position to be a sustainable business.
The biggest thing is you really have to stay on it and file every year, and the biggest thing that I hear after, and your clients as well, as my clients, the biggest compliment I hear is, I can't believe how easy that was. And how quick it was. And that's what they don't realize is, since I've been doing it so long, I know where everything goes. It doesn't take me that long to put it all together and file. You guys know you've seen
Make it simple.
And make it simple. And that's my whole goal, because I want them to concentrate on what they're doing, what you guys are doing, selling real estate, and not have to worry about this side of it. So
Right.
The easier I can make this side, it's just better for everybody.
Yeah. You know, the thing is like, I find, like, when I talk to people about, like, I have a client right now. He's like, oh, I haven't filed in a couple years. And I'm like, well, we can't get your house until you file those tax returns, you know, and get up to date. And even if they owe, like, even if they're on a payment plan, I can still sell them a house as long as we can show the underwriter that they're on a payment plan. So,
and most of them don't know all the options too, and that's another hindrance where it is easy to be on a payment plan. It is easy to, you know, I mean, they'll give you 5 years. They actually will work with you, but you just have to file. They won't work with you if you haven't filed and if you're not up to date. So you do those things and they'll work with you. There's a lot of online tools now that make it easier. You can get an account with the IRS and you can see all your filings and all your, you know, your letters if they send it to you, your transcripts, all that. So it's really easy to get the information.
why do you think that you've been able to do these high-powered, very technical tax returns? Is it just like what you study? Like what?
Network.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a lot of where I started as far as, like I said, when I first got here, I worked for the largest accounting firm, and there was just, even though they were the largest at the time, they weren't one of the big four at the time. They were like the level right under that. So we had just a huge variety of clients from casino to real estate. So I just got a lot of experience in all different areas. So it was easy for me to see the whole picture on things. And I was really good about, looking at past work and between that and, like I said, reading on a lot of the new tax laws and doing some of those updates. I think that's really helped me to get to where I am today.
I don't know if you can disclose this, but what's the largest amount you've ever saved somebody in tax?
That's a good question. It's probably north of $500,000, I'm sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What are some, what?
Go ahead.
No, I'm curious what you have to say.
No, I was just saying, like, if somebody was, like, paralyzed by the block of not filing, like, what do? Like, what's the first thing that you tell them to do?
First thing they have to do is pick up the phone and call me, and we've got to get them scheduled, find out exactly where they are when they filed last, what paperwork they do have. If they've lost paperwork or don't think they have everything, then, like I said, we can go online and get an account for them, because that doesn't take very long. We can usually do it in 20 minutes. We can get their transcripts, which will show everything that's reported under their Social Security number for the years they haven't filed. And that's the biggest step right there, because once we have that information, it's pretty easy to put together a tax return. And at that point, it's...
I didn't realize you could go online and get what you have under your name. So it's like whatever the employer reported?
So like for you guys, if you had, somebody 1099'd you, or a mortgage company that you paid mortgage interest to, or bank accounts that you have bank interest with, anything that gets reported under your social, we create that account and we can go get those. It'll show all of that for each year that... every year that's available. I think they go all the way back to 10 or 11 right now.
And it's 1099, W-2, like whatever.
All of it, yep.
Oh.
Any reported income to the IRS.
Any reported income, which is big on, especially in this town. The biggest letter I get IRS letter is for gambling winnings. People will either forget to give them to me, or they forgot they won, or they don't have them all. And so we'll get a letter saying you owe X amount because you didn't give us your gambling winnings. Usually I can fix that letter pretty easy, but the tool to help find those is going online, and all that will be reported in those transcripts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's actually, that one's a good one.
So what happens if people like win and lose? Does it like even itself out, or?
Yeah, I always tell people they don't build those casinos from people winning. So
Right.
so generally, in most cases, I'm able to write off any winnings they have with gambling losses. There are some hidden traps that you got to look for. So anybody should talk to their tax preparer and make sure that they document what they need to.
Most of all, don't do it on your own. Hire a professional. Like the amount of money that we pay you versus the amount of money you save us, it's just night and day. It's a no-brainer.
I've told people that.
It's so much less stressful. It's like you literally sit our clients down. When we bring clients to you, they sit with you for 30 minutes and they get their whole life together in 30 minutes that they've been waiting 2 years to do. It's the craziest thing ever. And oftentimes they're in a better situation than when they walked in the door.
Oh yeah,
100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's never a oh shit, this doesn't work out unless they can't swallow the pill of the damage they've created. But
right.
you know, there's always ways to alleviate that pressure.
Yes,
you know,
there is.
You know, you've done that, so I think it's really cool.
And
Matt
it's such
doesn't
a
know
relief.
this, but I worked for a tax attorney from 2000 to 2002, and we like represented clients that were like in heavy tax like situations, and so it's crazy that like it took me as long as it did to like
Dial
find you. But the thing is like I was raised with parents that were in the gambling business, that didn't have tip compliance, that had wage garnishment and all that. So I was like deathly afraid of like dealing
The
with tax.
three-letter word, the I, R, and the S.
There's people that just don't like those letters. They do not like those letters.
I'm like, just pay. You gotta pay to play, you know? So like, and that's why like, this is where Daniel and I sometimes disagree, because he's like, let's write it all off. And I'm like, I want income to, you know, qualify for stuff, you know? And I'm thankful that you balance us out, because like, we don't always see eye to eye on that. I probably have a little bit more life experience on it, but I'm like, let's just pay. Let's just W-2 ourselves. He's like, that's not why we're in business, Mom. But I just had such a bad upbringing with like watching my parents get crushed from like being in the casino business, you know? And like we have such a tip industry now. Like, what do you do with those people? Like, how do you figure that out? Or is it all tip compliance now?
Most of it is. I tell people if they're not on tip compliance, they should, because if you're not on tip compliance, 90% chance you're getting audited. They just look for those people because the IRS has already determined that they think their numbers are right, even though sometimes they're not. And so they're really looking for the people that aren't on tip compliance. So unfortunately in this town, I tell people you just kind of got to live with the number.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it. It's not worth it because otherwise you have to keep a logbook and track every day and keep extremely good records. And even in those cases, I've had issues even dealing with the IRS, even with those kind of records, because they're so just dead set on tip compliance.
You know what's so funny to me is like when the auditors would come into our office, I'm like, that was like such a scary thing. And I'm like, why these people use H&R Block and not use a tax professional is beyond me. Like, why would you want to have to be through an audit by yourself when you can hire somebody to do your taxes every year, probably properly, and not get audited and not have to go through that audit by yourself if that was ever to happen?
Let's talk about real estate agents specifically, because I know you do a lot of real estate people's taxes, and I just want to hear your opinion on some common things you see people do that can be avoided, and you know, I mean, I just want to hear your take on that.
I think on the real estate side, for the most part, there is a lot of people that still just don't file returns, and they get behind because once again we go back to they either don't understand it, they haven't kept great records, and they just don't know how to move forward. And especially with clients that do resale that have 1099s, some of them just they haven't either set up the right way to go about it, or just figure they can just move on. You know, they've got enough expenses and they'll just get to it eventually, and that's not the right answer. You need to really stay on top of it each year because things, you know, the laws change, and the IRS is getting really forward towards their collection practices, and you just don't want to get in a situation where they're garnishing your 1099s from your broker, or even.
Have you seen
worse
that?
lately.
That's why I'm like, holy
Yeah,
shit.
no, I've seen
Because
it.
the tax laws have changed. Like, there's a lot of things that have happened recently, and I think that's, I want you to talk on that as well. Is like, what's really changed and what people need to do. Like, real estate agents that aren't doing their taxes with a tax professional, you need to stop that shit right now and into this new year. And then Matt told us, he's like, there's no fucking around. Like, everything has to be perfect. And relying on yourself to do that or some cheap service, I mean, there's a price you pay for saving that money, and it's a lot more expensive than
at
you
the
think.
end of the day, it's worth it. Yes.
No, it's expensive not paying the price.
Not paying the price.
You know,
for it, yes.
it's more expensive not paying the price.
Yeah, and it'll just eventually happen. And with this new administration, and like I've told you guys, they're looking at $80 million in audit compliance and new auditors, and if that happens, I just see audits going up tenfold. So. Odds are, if you've got away with it so far, you're not going to get away with it. So there's some pretty scary stuff coming down the pipe.
It's not if, it's when.
It's going to be when. So the more you can do to get ahead of that, whether it's setting up an LLC or figuring out a way to get QuickBooks, documenting expenses, documenting income, the better off you are. Because at the end of the day, if you do get audited, your records are what's going to speak for you. So if you don't have that, we're all going to say, oh, our computer went down and we lost everything, and we're just going to, pray that the auditor likes us and is going to have mercy on us, and that's not the case. You'll owe a crap ton of money, and
the government paid them $80 million.
Exactly.
$80 million they are paying to people that are getting hired to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do, and they're hired to find something. They're not hired to just.
Yeah, they're getting paid to find a mistake, basically. So the worst thing they want to do is issue a no change letter, which means they went through the audit and nothing changed. They don't like that at all. So they, regardless, that's their job. They're looking for something. So
they're gonna find something.
More than likely they will. Knock on wood. I've been lucky so far. The last 3 or 4 I've done, they haven't. But
the attorney that I work for would always have to negotiate.
At the end of the day,
you would have to negotiate a better deal because when the audit was complete, the client owed.
Yeah, generally that's the case. I've been lucky enough, like I said, the last couple I've done have been no changes, and one of the last 6 I've done, I actually got more money back for the person because we were being really conservative because this client was just conservative, so we didn't take all the expenses we had, and when they audited it, we had more expenses, so they actually got more money back.
That's funny.
How long does the audit take?
It depends. It depends on the auditor. It depends on the clients. It depends on the records. I've seen them go, a couple weeks. I've seen them go a year. So
I have some real estate agent friends that did their own, and they were writing off clothing, like that they bought.
Clothing's a no unless it has some sort of logo or something on it.
He was writing off his dry cleaning, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, dry
paid
cleaning.
A pretty penny, and he got audited by himself.
And the big thing out there is, you may have other real estate agents that you've talked to, or other friends or whatever that write everything under the sun off, or write this off, or write. That doesn't mean it's right. It just means they haven't got caught yet. So that's another reason you want to make sure you talk to your tax preparer and just make sure what you're doing is deductible and there's a business purpose behind it.
Our new agent that just started, I told her, I was like, you got to get with Matt or somebody, start your LLC so you start your career off right. Because, I wish somebody, just like they don't teach us how to, do a checkbook, prepare a tax, do any of that in school. You don't, when you get in this business, my parents had never filed taxes properly in their whole life. So they didn't.
And most people don't. Most people's parents don't. Like you said, nobody teaches you how to do taxes.
Nobody teaches you how to do it.
And that's why you go to somebody like you who knows what they're doing. So tell people a little bit about what your services are and what you do, because I know you do tons of stuff for us. And I think it's important to let people know there's resources out there for them that's available.
And for my company, it's more, I was basically a CFO for a company for the better part of 12, 13 years. And so my company offers CFO services. So I kind of analyze where you're at basically and what we need to do. Do we need to set up businesses? Do we need to just do tax returns? Is there accounting, bookkeeping? Is there any legal we need to do? and kind of look at the whole financial picture to see kind of what areas we need to concentrate on and where to go.
So much more than taxes.
Much more than taxes, and I think that's important because you want to see the whole picture, because taxes is just one piece of your large financial picture. So you want to make sure that this piece ties into your overall objectives of everything you're trying to accomplish.
So what's a good foundation for somebody that's like a business owner that's like, say, a new agent, a new real estate agent gets their license, and how should they set themselves up for success?
So they should sit with their tax preparer and determine what type of agent they are. New home sales, or they resell, are they employee 1099, and determine if they do need a business set up, or if they need some sort of accounting software or receipt trackers, and just kind of determine what's the best situation for them, knowing that our number one goal should be to save taxes, but as you guys know, also there's car loans to worry about, there's house loans to worry about. There's other, future things that you might need to buy, that, equipment loans, leases, that if you're writing off everything under the sun, you can't qualify for. So
it's my number one reason people don't qualify. Every self-employed person recently that I've had to try and get them qualified,
They can't.
They can't, because they had all this write-off that was available to them, and they took it. And just because they make good money because they took the write-offs, now can't buy a house.
Or they can. They just have to wait to get their stuff set up.
right.
Where we
it's
give them to you.
It's just a conversation you need to have.
Yeah.
You need to have an open conversation about where you're going in 2 years, like we have. When did Daniel want to get a house? When did Laura want to get a house? What do we need to show to get that house?
LLC set up,
Yeah.
proper pay structure. That's super
Yeah, because
important.
even though you do have...
Let's talk about that, like paying yourself. Like, what do you recommend for people that are self-employed? How should they pay themselves? Should they go on W-2? Should they go 1099? Or is it just situational?
So if you're let's say you're a 1099 real estate agent, and you've set up a LLC and your taxes an S corp, eventually you do have to pay yourself a W-2 salary. And the reason why that is because the reason tax preparers set you up that way is because everything you pay yourself is a distribution, is not subject to taxation. It's not subject to Social Security, it's not subject to Medicare. And the IRS knows that we set you up that way to avoid some of those taxes. So you have to pay yourself what's called a reasonable salary. And the risk you run by not doing that is the IRS, if they come in and audit you, could basically say, okay, all your distributions are quote unquote salary now, so you're going to get taxed on Social Security and Medicare on all of your distributions. And then you're going to get hit with penalties and interest, and so you really got to be careful that you're following those rules and documenting and the salary that you're paying yourself and why you're paying that salary, and making sure it's reasonable for where your business is at the time.
This is why I use that, because that just stresses me out. Even hearing that you have to think about all that. I don't want to think about all that.
Yeah, you looked at me because we have to do that. It's inevitable. Like, we have grown to a point in our business where now we're going to have to start doing that.
Yeah.
It's a necessity of growing in business. And as a business owner, I'm like, it's a necessity. I need everything to be set up properly to avoid any outside, like anything from the IRS. I don't want shit from the IRS. I don't have to deal with an additional headache. I have enough already. It's not worth it.
And they say that accounting will bring down a majority of businesses, because either people grow too fast or they don't understand certain rules, and things will happen that'll just bring the business down because of that growth, because of issues that pop up. I would say 90 to 95% of the IRS letters I get are wrong, or are not 100% correct, and to where I have to deal with them and fix them, because they will always just assume
The worst,
basically. So every letter you get in the when I was talking about the W-2 gambling winnings, they just assumed that you won the money and you didn't lose any money. So if you've got a $5,000 W-2G, they just assume you had $5,000. They don't know that you had $6,000 in losses. So when you get that letter, it's saying that you owe money, you owe taxes on the $5,000. Whereas we know if we go fix it, you're actually going to owe zero because you had $6,000 in losses.
So like PVPs, is that considered income?
No, that is actually not income. That was basically stimulus. I would say the best answer for that during the COVID years.
There are all these dumbasses that bought Lambos with their PPP money.
You think they'll ever get in trouble for that?
I mean, unfortunately, I don't know how they would police that because they've already lost so much. They've already talked about how they've lost so much of that money that probably shouldn't have gone to people that did with fake businesses and things like that. I just don't think they were ready for what they put in place, unfortunately. And a lot of people that should have got that money didn't, and people that probably shouldn't have got that money got a lot of it.
I know, it's so crazy. I got a stimulus check.
And I don't think it's ever coming back, yeah.
I got a stimulus check on one of those rounds, and I was like, I make too much money. Why am I getting this? And then I heard people that didn't get it, and I was like, I don't understand.
Yeah, and that's a big thing between W-2 and 1099 on those stimuluses, because you could have, big 1099 income would be able to write off a lot, and you would have got a stimulus check. However, if you had a W-2 for that same amount, there's no write-offs against that, so you wouldn't have qualified for the stimulus. So it would just really depended on people's situation. And I heard more often than not people that are like, I can't believe I'm still getting this. It's not that I need this or want it, and they just kept getting it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I had people that from, I want to say February to March of last year would get like $20,000 in stimulus just because they had 3 or 4 kids plus plus themselves, and it was getting more money than some of these people had ever had in their lifetimes in their checking account at one time.
I did an Instagram. I was like, if you got that money, you should be buying a house with it. Call us.
They should, but I'm not so sure. Right. I saw a lot of new cars on the road.
No, that's going to lead to what I want to talk about. So let's talk about new cars and like new cars being a tax topic. It's like that wasn't a thing a few years ago. Now cars are worth more than when people bought them. They're a good investment now. You buy a supercar, and a year from now it's going to be worth significantly more. I know we were talking about the G-Wagon, the Escalades. I mean, shit, you bought one $150,000, now it's worth $300,000.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as the IRS concerned, it's never been personal cars like that. You've never really had to put on your tax return. However, now that they're worth so much, if you're buying and selling a couple of them, it's a possibility that there could be a taxable situation there. So I would strongly advise you to talk to your tax preparer and just double check to make sure there's no issues there.
It's almost like capital gains on a house.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, because it was always, kind of de minimis before, where generally you lost money on cars, or the IRS never really was concerned about it because you're not really writing off cars, and you're buying one when you sell one. So there wasn't a lot of issues there for personal autos. But now with as much money as they're worth, there could be. So just double check.
Like, I know people buying fleets of cars for their business.
Yeah.
And renting it out and doing stuff like that.
Well, and I'm trying to think what there's an app now where you can do that, where you can rent your car out.
Turo.
Yeah.
So
I do have some clients that bought like 5 or 6 Teslas and are using that and actually making some good money by renting their cars out on that site. But that's a little different. If they're operating as a business that way, some set of LLCs, and then they're definitely deductions, and you would have to pick up income on sales and things like that. But if it's just a single car that you're doing, I would definitely talk to your tax professional and make sure.
Yeah, I rented a Tesla while my car was being wrapped in SEMA, and they literally bought that car just to Turo it.
Yep. And they're making good money by doing that too.
They don't even drive it.
Yeah,
they don't even drive like a nice car that
crazy.
people I rented the car from.
My client's not driving any of it, the 5 that he bought. So
Yeah.
Wow.
Just
he
total
just puts
complete
them in
business.
different places in town, and they do their thing. So
How long's he been doing it?
I think he just started towards the end of last year, so I want to say it was September, October. Is when he started.
That's a good business. I have a friend that just has a couple of cars.
But yeah, because now you're hearing more about it and more about us. So I think it is a good time to start.
I remember when we went to Hawaii, I paid like $1,800 for our car rental there.
Oh, it was
I was
crazy.
like-
I was like, this is the business.
Yeah, I couldn't believe
For
how
2
much
days, 3
Hawaii
days.
car rentals were.
Like a Chevy Malibu or something. So what about crypto? That's gonna be a big thing. I mean, you have these kids that are making millions of dollars selling NFTs and crypto accounts. Is it like gambling? Is it like investing? I mean, let's talk about that.
So basically, they've, as far as tax purposes go, the IRS has said that crypto is not currency. It's basically more of think of it as a capital asset, so like a stock or even real estate. So what most people don't know is in your wallets, let's say you have a Bitcoin in your wallet and you sell it or trade it for Ethereum or Litecoin or something like that, most people are under the impression that, hey, I'm just trading one crypto for another.
Taxable.
It's actually a taxable event. So you've got to be really careful with crypto because almost everything you do is a taxable event.
Wow.
And most people in those wallets, it's hard to track what you're doing, and especially if you're not aware, if you started so long ago, it's almost impossible to figure out how many times you've traded, what you bought, if you started buying NFTs with it, and what you've done, and eventually the IRS is going to figure out how to tax this stuff.
You better cough it up to Matt what you bought.
And keep track of it.
Yeah, because I was like, I bought an NFT. I bought one NFT, and I did change. I bought the crypto on Coinbase, and then I bought the Ethereum, and I transferred it to the wallet, and then I purchased NFT with it. So there's an exchange here when I bought it. There's an exchange when I transferred it over.
So the exchanges you're fine. It's just so you bought
but when I sell it,
actually, when you bought the NFT, that was a taxable transaction. So that's what you got to be careful about.
Oh,
So I spent like $1,300 on one.
Yeah, but you also bought into. Would you buy it with Ethereum?
Ethereum.
So you bought X amount of Ethereum to get that NFT. So that's your basis. So we get to take that off, and then that part's a taxable transaction, and then that's your new basis in the NFT. But
when I sell it, say if I sell it and I make money off it, say I make 10 grand. What happens then? That's
same thing. It's a taxable transaction at that point too. So now you've got two.
Do you think the
So
government
this
is
is
going
used as part of our income.
It goes on your tax return as part of your income, basically.
It's funny.
So you got to be really careful, and
You
I
better
recommend
start writing this stuff
people
down.
really
I'm
need
done
to
investing
use
in
like
crypto.
a spreadsheet.
No, you are
or
not.
For now, I need a
Really
guru.
track your basis in that stuff, because the problem is they've so far they've only subpoenaed. I want to say it's Coinbase right now is the only subpoenas they've sent out. So they're trying to figure out how they can tax this and what information they get, because it's tough to track it, as you guys know, in these wallets. And I mean, the whole idea behind it was to be anonymous and not know, what people were doing and what people had. And
I bought in it.
And 2 years ago is when they put the question on the tax return. Have you done anything with cryptocurrency, basically? So right there is trying to lock you into a yes or no answer, because you can get in trouble on that for not answering correctly because you're signing those tax returns. So you got to be really careful with the crypto stuff, because my fear is, once they figure out how to track this stuff,
They'll go back.
They could go back.
That's what I'm saying.
And
I think they can go back
with penalties and interest. Whereas most of my clients, I make them tell me now and track the stuff. So we'll put it on the return now. And if that's the case, they can only go back 3 years. Because if they can only audit a return 3 years once you file, basically, from the date of filing.
That's why you should file, because then that way you're
That's why
less likely to get audited.
That's another reason you need to file.
Wow.
Oh.
There's your hack right there. There's your crypto hack for the day. That's crazy.
Put it on your tax return.
Put it on your tax returns, and it will save your ass.
Are you involved in crypto?
Yes, I have a little, yes. I have Ethereum too.
Yeah.
I think that's the one right now.
I agree.
Who the heck knows? I mean,
I hope
think
Ethereum is the
I think
next
NFTs
Bitcoin.
are cool. I wish I had an ape right now. I'd love an ape.
Oh yeah,
Right?
apes are pretty cool. He has a buddy, our camera guy's buddy, is going to come on and talk about NFTs. I think we should do another one with you and him on here talking about NFTs and kind of bouncing back ideas. I think that'd be a cool one.
I've got a couple things as far as taxation with like IRAs and charitable foundations. That's about the only way I've figured out how you can save big on taxes when it comes to crypto. That's about the only way right now is those two ideas. So, and I've actually heard on the radio now, somebody is pushing the IRAs for, one of the big companies pushing IRAs for crypto.
Crypto IRAs.
So, yeah, because then if you set it up in an IRA, you can do all the trading you want back and forth, and you don't have to worry about the tax side.
As long as it stays there, right?
As long as it stays in there.
Smart.
You're good to go. You don't have to worry about what I just said.
Can you set one of those
Where
up for us?
It has to be either a financial planner or a, it's kind of some legal
CPA.
paperwork. But yes, I have some people that do it.
Okay. Maybe that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I think if you're
Daniel's obsessed.
if you're gonna do that, I think it's a great idea right now, because like I said, it takes away the tracking aspect right now.
I think it'll all be tracked.
Eventually,
I mean,
it will.
the
Eventually,
system
it will.
was designed to not be tracked.
Coinbase kind of does it now. They do a lot
do.
better than any of the other ones. None of the other ones do it, and there's a reason they're doing it is because it's eventually going that way. But you don't have to worry about switching from Litecoin to back to Bitcoin to Ethereum and all those, which would be all taxable events. Every time you switch in between those, in an IRA, you don't have to worry about that. It's just, part of it. Whereas outside of that, you technically have to track all those, and each time you switch back and forth, it's taxable.
Dang.
And like I said, nobody's
And you know what? I'll tell you
reporting
what.
that. Nobody's
These
reporting
19,
that right now.
20-year-olds that
They're
are
making
They-
$100,000 a month.
They don't know.
They have
They
no
don't
idea.
know.
They have-
No idea what they're doing.
They don't even know what the IRS means.
Yeah.
They're like, isn't that where they give you money back?
Haven't you seen that TikTok?
The write-offs. It's a write-off. It's what?
That one cracked
What
me
are the
up.
most
That one
misconceptions
cracked me up.
about like people thinking like this is a write-off? This is a write-off because I'm that person. I'm like it's a write-off. She's like, no, it's not. It's not a write-off. That TikTok was made off of us. I swear.
People just think everything, like anything they
What's
do.
the most common thing you get to say? Oh, isn't that a write-off? And it's like, no, dummy.
Like off the top of my head, because I can basically argue anything's a write-off. So I'm under that. I would say probably dry cleaning
It's probably the most common.
Dry cleaning or clothes. People are like, oh, I had to go get 2 new suits or a brand new dress or.
So you tell me I
a
can't
whole
write
new
off my
wardrobe.
suits unless I put my logo
Unless you
inside of
put
them?
DC on there, buddy. Sorry.
Well, that's fine. I talked to her. I was like, everything, even when I go to a, not designer, I just put the stitching inside and we're good.
It's probably better outside, but
Okay. I do this a lot in photos, so it's okay.
see, I can argue that.
All right.
I can definitely
As
argue.
long as there's photos, right? With the podcast, I have the shirt out. I'm like, boom,
Yep.
DC. There you go. It's showing.
But yeah,
Or I can get a little
that's big
pin,
one.
like that stays on the suit. There you go.
I like
Tax
that,
hacks.
too.
Oh, you're wearing Psycho Bunny.
Yeah, Psycho Bunny. DC. Psycho Bunny X DC.
I do like Psycho Bunny.
Trying to think of something else that would.
I want to some new tax laws that maybe people don't know about. Something that's besides the fact they gave $80 million for people to be hired to go make sure that you're following the law. It's a little scary.
Well, that like I said, that hasn't happened yet. So right now, a lot of that stuff is talk in Biden's a lot of his bills he's doing. So right now, all the new tax laws basically came into play when Trump went into office and passed his in, I want to say 2017, I believe, 2017, 2018. So really nothing's changed that much since then. So
When will we know about the Biden stuff?
well, hopefully,
Never?
Manchin.
Hopefully never.
Manchin keeps on
Hopefully never.
denying it, and it doesn't get through. So, you just got to keep watching. Unfortunately, just keep watching the news and articles and
We'll give you a call.
when it gets closer, yeah.
Because we don't watch the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got to watch some of that stuff just to make sure.
Yeah, it's your business.
Because when it comes through, basically, because
I watch the stock market.
some of it's scary.
From what I've heard, we are the lowest tax rate anywhere, right?
As far as
Like, because no state income tax.
State tax.
yeah, there's no state income tax here, which is really nice. There's a few states like that: Florida, Tennessee, Texas, obviously. But there's, believe it or not,
But like their property taxes are crazy in Texas.
Texas is really crazy. People say our DMV fees are crazy here, but it's all relative because they still have to pay for stuff somewhere. But there's a lot of states that are talking about eliminating the state income tax because a lot of the states that don't have it are doing so well. All the people moving to Florida, all the people moving to Tennessee, Georgia, I think is the latest one, Georgia, Mississippi, that are talking about eliminating their state income tax because they have big surpluses that they're trying to figure out how to spend the money.
Well, let's be honest. Would you rather live in Georgia or Vegas?
I would much rather live in Vegas.
I think it's a great investment to move to Vegas and like taking your business and bringing it down here and then buying a house down here that, I mean, our property taxes are lower. There's no state income tax, and it's just like a no-brainer for most businesses. I'm like, why wouldn't you move down here?
Yeah, no.
Unless you want to be on the beach. Vegas doesn't have a beach. It's the only thing we're missing, but shit.
But those taxes, they want to raise them. Did you see that thing they're talking about raising?
Doubling California taxes.
Yeah, you gotta. That's like I said. That's why we always have to watch because there's always somebody that brings it up that wants to fix something and bring a solution to where there's no problem. That's the worst.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I agree that like there should be taxation, but when you look at like what we're taxed on and all of that, I'm like, it's just the price you pay to make money. Just pay it and move on. Like,
Yeah, and
It's a cost of doing business.
It's a cost of doing business.
Cost of
We all
doing
know.
business.
At the same time, we also don't want to pay too much. So that's like that's why you want to hire a professional and pay the least amount that you legally have to pay. Basically, that's what I tell people when I get a new client. Like, we'll be right on that line, but our whole goal is to pay the least amount legally possible. I mean, that's why there should be tax preparers to keep up on the same thing the big corporations are doing. The little corporations should be doing. The single corporations should be doing. Just like you guys, small business owners should get the same breaks and the same opportunities that the big guys are getting.
100% agree. I think it's funny that people are like, the whole Jeff Bezos saying Amazon not paying his taxes. I'm like, they do pay tax.
I guarantee he pays more tax than probably anybody on the planet.
I didn't hear that. What is it?
So Jeff Bezos, there's a thing going online that's like, Amazon doesn't pay the taxes. Elon Musk doesn't pay taxes. And Elon Musk is like, I probably pay more taxes than any of you have.
Yeah.
Because I mean, think about it. Every time a car is sold, there's tax paid. Every time, they hire an employee, the employee's income gets taxed. Every time they purchase a product for their warehouse, every time they own a property that pays taxes, there's taxes being paid every single day.
Yeah, I guarantee he's paying more in payroll taxes than most companies and all across America because the amount of employees he has, they pay a portion of those payroll taxes. So there's no way he's not paying taxes. There might be a form on one of his corporate taxes that says 0, but he's paying taxes.
Well, because doesn't like a business law help thriving businesses if there's like multiple businesses?
Yeah, and he probably has several different businesses, and there may be a few that don't pay taxes because maybe some had some larger purchases for the year, or they were able to take advantage of certain tax breaks here or there. But overall, if you look at him as a whole, I guarantee he's paying a very large amount of taxes.
I heard my car's heavy enough to be in that 6,000 pound weight.
There were some tax hacks.
Yes. I mean, I like vehicles. I guess the biggest one on vehicles that I tell people is people want to go out and spend money to save taxes, but sometimes that's not necessarily the best idea if you don't need to spend the money. Like, don't buy a car if you're not going to spend a car because you're spending 100% of your dollars to save 30% of your dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the biggest hack is looking at your overall financial situation, and sometimes maybe 20% is the best number to pay, and actually just pay the tax. So that's, I think we're always hung up on the fact that we just need to lower our taxes, not pay any taxes, lower, and you're not looking at your overall financial situation, being able to get a house, buying a car every year when you probably don't need it. As we know, until this year, cars were not a great investment, and just being able to have the foresight to say maybe paying the taxes this year is the best thing.
Yeah, I know, because I hear all the time online, like, oh, this is how you cannot pay tax, but like,
But people don't understand what that means.
don't
people don't
compare,
understand,
don't compare your
don't compare
situation to
yourself.
mine, because like, what are you making? What am I making? How is that different? Like,
So don't get tax advice from your uncle.
Yes. And I see a lot of clients in the same field all the time that are like, hey, this guy gets 5,000 every year, and how come I'm only getting 1,000? And there's 1,000 different reasons that could be. And so you really can't compare yourself to the next person, because they may be withholding more on their W-2. They may have, a couple kids. They may have some credit that you didn't have this year. So there's a lot of different reasons where they may be getting more of a refund. But if you look at the overall, you still may be paying less tax. So they may just be paying in I have some people that just don't want to deal with the IRS at all, so they'll pay in the absolute most they possibly can. They'll withhold on their W-2s at single zero. So they may get 10 grand back, but it's because they paid in an extra, 12 grand to get that 10 back. And where this person gets 2 grand, but they still paid less tax, and they didn't pay that 10 grand yet. So,
I used to be that person when I was on W-2.
Yeah.
I used to pay so much in and then get a big return, because I'm like, I just want to pay them, until like I really started getting like acclimated to like, I wasn't going to be in trouble. You always put me in a good situation. Maybe I shouldn't be giving them that money all year long. And like,
So you can do something with the money. If you give other people your money, we're not able to have the most operating capital. We tell our clients this when they purchase houses. It's like, don't get rid of all your cash. You don't need to put 30% down.
Oh, no,
I have people buying $300,000 houses talking about putting 30% down. Like, why? Keep your money. Go do something else with it. Unless you're that irresponsible with your money, you need to title up into one asset.
I tell them the same thing. And that's the thing. You have to make sure that they're not irresponsible with their money, because, as you know, some people refinance their house and go buy a new Raptor.
Or a boat.
Or a boat, or a car that they shouldn't buy because they don't need one.
Yeah.
Instead of 2 new houses.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with the money, because I'll have people that just aren't good savers, and if they want to withhold more tax, I'm okay with that, because them getting a $5,000 or a $7,000 refund is great for them at the end of the year, because they would just blow through that money all year if they didn't have it. I have other people that know where every dime is, and the ultimate goal on your tax return is to get plus or minus $500. That's where you want to be.
what do you think the difference is between the people that are able to save and the people that can't save?
That's hard. It's education. It's how they were brought up. It's
Psychology more than anything.
I think
it's how you're raised.
And it's hard now because everything on these phones is buy. You have the opportunity to click on anything at any time and buy it. And more importantly, you see that there's people that do have, everything you're scrolling, somebody has this, you want to get that, and you don't realize that a lot of times they really don't have that. It's somebody let them use it for that reel, or they borrowed it for somebody, or we know their best lives are on those reels.
Right.
It's not real life, it's their best life.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, I had a new agent reach out to me. She's like, is this the business license I need to file? I said, listen, I have a guy that does all that for me. Like, I don't spend my time figuring out, am I filing the right licenses? Do I have the right LLC?
You check with the experts.
Like, I just call you. I'm like, Matt, I'm thinking about doing a new business. Set me up, And
I think there's something to be said about that. Like, people that are professionals use professionals. They don't leave it to guesswork,
that's not best use of my time.
No, and I tell people, like, you may pay a little more, but
you pay a lot less, actually.
In the long run, you pay a lot less, but at the same time, go sell one house and you've paid for my services. go sell, go do one tax return. I pay for this service. Like, go do the one thing you do and figure out a way to pay for it and not worry about it again, instead of like, oh, that's too much money.
I just like the peace of mind.
Because it's not too much money.
No.
Like, people, if they're good at what they do, and you've had enough of your friends or the people you work with recommend them, they're not going to screw you. They're not screwing you. Their price is fair, and figure out a way to pay for it and move on.
So if somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they get a hold of you?
Best way would just be to email me or text me.
So give me your email.
Email is Matt, M-A-T-T, @nvcpas.com.
Perfect. We're going to be doing a giveaway on the channel. You have to make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. We want to give back to you and give you a shout out. We want to show the love to you like you show the love to us.